Welcome to this explainer. Grab those notebooks and get comfortable because today we are diving deep into Daniel Kahneman's mind-bending theories on decision-making. We're going to treat this exactly like we're prepping for your clinical psychology exam. We're looking at the literal architecture of how human beings experience and remember their lives. And trust me, by the end of this, you are going to view your own mind completely differently.
All right, let's look at our syllabus for today. First, the vacation paradox, then the core theory. After that, a clinical case on pain memory, then we'll evaluate daily routines, and finally, wrap up with your exam prep study checklist. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The Vacation Paradox.
To really understand the mind, we have to start with the classic scenario that totally challenges our basic understanding of human happiness. Picture this. You're on the absolute perfect, completely stress-free vacation of your entire life. The sun is shining, the food is incredible, you have absolutely zero stress. But on the very last day, something unpleasant happens. It doesn't even have to be a massive disaster, just a highly unpleasant ending. I want you to ask yourself, does that one final sour moment retroactively erase the joy you felt for the previous 6 days?
Well, when Kahneman actually posed this exact timeline, most people reported the vacation as ruined or at least significantly less good. They essentially proved that a single bad ending somehow wins out over 6 days of objective, quantifiable perfection. I mean, mathematically, one bad day out of 7 shouldn't tank a whole trip, right? But human memory doesn't exactly do math.
Moving on to section 2, the core theory.
So how exactly does our brain pull off this cognitive magic trick? The answer boils down to the number 2. Kahneman discovered that there are actually 2 entirely distinct selves operating inside every single person. They're essentially roommates living in your head, and let me tell you, they disagree on almost everything when it comes to your well-being.
Okay, highlight this crucial distinction for your exam because it is the absolute foundation of our analysis today. On the left, we have the experiencing self. This self lives strictly in the present moment. It feels pleasure and pain right now as they happen, and it actually cares deeply about the duration of those feelings. Like a long, delicious meal is obviously better than a short one. But on the right, we have the remembering self. This self strictly evaluates the past to build a cohesive narrative, a life story. And here is the absolute kicker. The remembering self completely ignores duration. It literally just tosses the stopwatch out the window.
Which brings us to section 3, clinical case, pain memory.
Let's look at how this plays out in an actual patient scenario, where this distortion becomes beautifully and honestly somewhat shockingly quantifiable. If the remembering self ignores duration, what does it actually use to judge an event? Well, it relies heavily on the peak end rule. Seriously, star this term, you absolutely must memorize it for your test. It states that your brain judges an experience almost entirely on just 2 moments, the absolute peak of intensity and the very end. All the rest of the data, basically just swept under the rug. To put this into perspective, take a look at Kahneman's medical procedure study. Patients were undergoing a pretty painful procedure. Version A was shorter, but it ended abruptly right at the absolute peak of maximum pain. Now, version B was deliberately extended. It was objectively longer, meaning the patient endured way more total pain, but the procedure ended at a lower, milder pain level. And the clinical results? They're wild. Patients rated version B as significantly less painful. They were actually more willing to undergo it again. Now, Socratic question time. Was the patient's physical pain actually lower in version B? Absolutely not. The objective experiencing self suffered more total pain. But their memory was completely warped just because of that milder ending. Always remember this. Your memory of an experience is not a recording. It's a reconstruction, and it's built entirely by the remembering self. As a future clinical psychologist, you are going to see this bias daily in your practice. You'll have patients who literally discard the objective duration of a stressful event or a bad relationship or a painful treatment. They reconstruct their permanent memory by exclusively pulling out the peak, pulling out the end, and just averaging those 2 together. So that vacation we talked about earlier, it wasn't ruined because the 6 perfect days vanished. It was ruined because the remembering self weighted the bad ending way heavier than almost a full week of joy. Let's look at section 4, evaluating daily routines. The crucial point here, where the rubber really meets the road, is how this exact cognitive gap directly impacts our long-term well-being and the choices we make every single day.
Kahneman noted that most of us constantly confuse these two selves. We think we're optimizing for happiness, but unconsciously, we're really just optimizing for the remembering self. We chase status, impressive job titles, big milestones, just to build a good life story. The problem? We completely neglect the joy, the engagement, and the presence required by the experiencing self in our moment-to-moment daily routines. You end up with a career or life that looks incredible on paper, but feels utterly hollow to actually live through on a random Tuesday afternoon. To achieve true well-being, you can't just choose one. You must consciously design your life for both.
All right, final stretch, Section 5, Exam Prep Study Checklist. Let's synthesize all of this complex theory into a rapid-fire, high-yield checklist so you are perfectly prepared for your exam. Lock these core concepts into your brain right now. Number 1, your mind is split into the experiencing self and the remembering self. Number 2, your memory blatantly ignores the total time elapsed. Number 3, the peak end rule guarantees that your memories distort reality by averaging just the most intense moment and the finish line. And finally, optimizing purely for a good story is a surefire way to ruin your daily happiness. True well-being means catering to both selves.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to really chew on. Take a hard look at your own career choices, your relationships, and your daily routines, and ask yourself honestly, which self are you actually living for? Are you designing your life for the self that lives it or the self that remembers it? The answer might just change the way you structure the rest of your life. Good luck studying, and I really hope this psychological framework serves you well.